I want to speak about this older FBA brother who was a security guard for the welfare office, who really stood all the way on FBA business when a suspected white supremacist, Peckerwood, came in there mad, frustrated, and irate that his EBT food stamps had been shut off and cut off because of this government shutdown. So our brother, who was a security guard, nicely, kindly, and politely, asked this Peckerwood to leave. The Peckerwood became irate, mad, and frustrated, hopped all up in our brother's face. So our brother had to put them FBA hands on him, assert that dominance, and show him, who's really the boss, and he runs not a damn thing. Our brother said, I'm the boss of this ish, and you gonna listen today. You know what I mean? So I'm seeing something, though, truth be told, as far as, this government shutdown is concerned with the EBT thing. I'm seeing, Peckerwoods crashing out left and right, people in general, even some black folks, crashing out, and that's a bunch of nonsense because although I do feel, it's an unfortunate thing for the people that really need it, that, ain't able bodied, like, the elderly that may have worked all of their life, or people that are homeless and, are trying to get back on their feet. And people who are raising small kids that are really in their kids' life and just may have hit a rough patch. I feel sorry for them, but I'm under the mindset of the nation and our FBA brother Elijah Muhammad with that do for self mentality. Because what if this government stays shut down and they don't bring food stamps back, and this lasts indefinitely? Because I'm hearing that's what may happen. They may not bring the food stamp back. What you gonna do? Just sit up and starve? Hell to the no. You should be doing for self. You shouldn't be relying on anyone anyway, because people will let you down left and right. The only one that ain't gonna let you down is yourself, that man in the mirror. So I'm under that mindset of the Nation of Islam, and that is do for self. So I got the audio and the video of this FBA brother standing all the way on business and, showing this Peckerwood who's really the boss. And we're going to walk through and talk about this thing how we normally do. Fair use.
Get. Fuck you. Get going before I fuck you. Hit me. With this or this? Both. Which one? Both. Move. Move! Get out. Stand there a little bit longer and see what happens. Yeah, fuck you. I'm not touching you. Get out. Get out. Fuck you, bitch. Get out. Touch me again. Get out.
Look, family, that Peckerwood really scared. Look at his hand, the twitching and the shaking. You know what I mean? Because the white supremacists, they don't like black folks, being in a position of power to dictate to them how things is going to go down. You know what I mean? And you could tell from this suspected white supremacist whole disposition that he ain't nothing more than a racist white supremacist, and he was dying in the inside to say that N-word because, anytime something goes the way white supremacists or suspected white supremacists, don't like, especially regarding black folks, they quick to throw out that N-word with the hard ER at the drop of a dime. So I'm surprised in all actuality that this Peckerwood, didn't revert to, throwing out that N-word with the hard ER. I'm really surprised by that because they got a, chip on their shoulder when it comes to black folks, dictating to them in a certain dominance the way things is going to move and go down. But let's continue.
Out. Stupid motherfucker. Get your ass out before I mess you up. Mess me up. Now. Get out. Get out. You gonna play with me, man? Get out of this. Oh, let's go. Yeah, okay. Let's go. Touch me, motherfucker.
Salute to that FBA brother right there for standing on business. And I know he FBA because we the only people that really stand on this kind of business. Others become, docile and dormant when going against, white supremacists and suspected white supremacists. And we always stand, 10 toes down and all the way on FBA business.
Come on, get out. Do it again. I need my fucking ID. Get it. Get it. You touch it. Fucker, now call. Get it. Now call. Move. Now call. Move. You move. Move. You want another one? Yeah, let's go. Come on. I don't give a fuck. I dealt with him before you. I'm right here.
But in closing, family, the white supremacists and the tether class alike love to sit up and call black folks welfare queens, which is a false narrative put out there by, white supremacist society. I want y'all to look at the layout of that, welfare office. None but pink folks sitting up in there. No one in the world gets more, assistance, government assistance than the racist white supremacists and the tether class. You know what I mean? But I could see this lack of, EBT food stamps, creating, major crimes, you know what I mean? And people, some people, they're gonna be, getting out here acting crazy, if this lasts indefinitely. I could see it creating a problem as far as crime is concerned, but able-bodied people, should be doing for self anyway. Just my thoughts on the matter. But if you able-bodied, you should be operating, like our brother, FBA brother Elijah Muhammad always preached, and that is do for self. Just my thoughts on the matter. Peace.